Okay. Okay, welcome to Understanding Astrological Interceptions with Lin Ewing. Lin is an astrologer and an Akashic record reader located in Chicago, Illinois. And in addition to doing Akashic records and astrological readings, Lin offers astrology classes for total beginners, as well as workshops for those more advanced, and for professional astrologers who wish to expand their understanding and knowledge of specific topics within astrology. You can find her at her website, which is www.astrologicaldetails.com. It's spelled exactly the way it sounds. And Lin, take it away. Thank you very much for joining us today.
I will. Thank you. Beef, let me get this open and going. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to change my view here because now I've changed it wrong. So that's not good. Hide thumbnail. Very good. Okay. Before we get into the actual, I can't think of the word. Before I start going on this, I want to say that it's been my experience that astrologers who do not have an interception in their charts tend to say interceptions don't matter. And those who do have an interception in their chart say, oh, they matter a lot. I happen to have an interception, and I find interceptions very significant in the chart. So I hope that this brings something home to you if you, in fact, have an interception in your chart or you're working with clients who do. So let's get going. Now, because of where we are as a planet and how we're shaped, this is how interceptions happen. So interceptions occur because the Earth's curvature and its tilt on the axis cause this to happen depending on where you are on the planet. So an interception is least likely to occur at or near the equator. And this is because of the spherical nature of our planet. And at the equator, it is less distorted. So as we move north or south of the equator, we are going to find, if you are working with quadrant houses, you are going to find distortions in the sizes of the houses. So the farther north you go or the farther south you go from the equator, the more probability that you are going to have distortions and potential interceptions. So generally, more than 50 degrees north of the equator or 50 degrees south of the equator, you are probably going to find an interception. This is a general rule. It's not hard and fast. You don't have to have an interception just because you're far away from the equator, but it's got a fair likelihood of happening. Now, if you go very far, and I could not find it, I used to have a chart in the 3-hour workshop of this that had double interceptions. So 4 signs were intercepted, but I could not find it anymore. And that was just very, very near the North Pole. So you can see that the distortion at the pole is quite significant. So interceptions, the closer you are to the poles, you are possibly going to have them. But if you are using a whole house or an equal house system, so a non-quadrant system, you're not going to have interceptions because it doesn't happen in that kind of a setup. So what is it? Well, it's a condition in the horoscope where 2 of the 12 signs, so a polarity of the signs, are not represented on a cusp. The sign, each of those 2 in the polarity, is completely contained within a house. So it is not on any cusp. And as you see here, this is what it would look like. You know, it doesn't matter which sign, but you see that one sign does not have a cusp to rule. So the sign on the cusp of the house containing the interception is the sign preceding the contained or intercepted sign. So in this situation, the interception is Libra. So Virgo is on the cusp of this house. It's the preceding sign. And then the sign on the following house cusp is the sign following the intercepted sign. So you can see that the sign is completely encased in the house, and the rulership of the previous and following cusps is the previous and following signs. So the sign that is intercepted does not have rulership of any cusp within the horoscope. It can be considered a co-ruler of that house, but it still has to go through the actual ruler of the house to manifest anything. So this sign of Libra is going to be step down into the sign of Venus. I'm sorry, Virgo. It has to change itself enough to go through Virgo. And so when people see the essences of Neptune and Mercury in this situation, they're not going to manifest quite as much as Libra, as they are going to look more like Virgo. And that's part of the issue of the difficulty of having an interception. So planets can also be intercepted if they're in the sign that is intercepted. So you see here we have Neptune and Mercury that are stuck in there. So it's a little harder for them to express. If you have no interception in your chart, each sign rules a house cusp. So in this situation, we see here, all of the signs are represented and ruling a cusp. But with an interception, at least two signs, and it depends where you are on the planet, of course, how this is going to play out, at least two signs, so a polarity, do not rule any house cusps. The sign on the cusp in this situation here, on the second and the third houses, is Leo. And on the fourth house, it's Virgo. The fifth house is Scorpio. So we have Libra completely contained or intercepted within the fourth house, and it does not rule a cusp. So because it's a polarity, this also means we're going to have the opposite situations on the opposite houses. So if Leo rules the second and the third, the polarity of Leo, being Aquarius, is going to rule the eighth and the ninth. And since Aries and Libra are the polarity, and Libra is intercepted in the fourth, we know that Aries will be intercepted in the 10th. So Aries is blocked. Aries energy is blocked. Libra energy is blocked. And as we look at that, we want to consider, what is that polarity about? Because the energy of that polarity is blocked for this native. Jump in anytime if you have questions or comments. Now, with an interception, here's something to consider as you are looking at what's going on around the cusps on the chart. The rhythm of the individual is thrown out of balance because the sequence of the elements within the chart is off. So the elements of the houses are off. And we have the expected symmetry of the circle and the lineup of the elements on the cusps out of sequence. There's an emphasis of one area at the expense of another, or without the support of another. So here's what we're looking at when I say that. This is our example. Now, these are what we might call the career houses, the money houses, the earth houses in the natural zodiac. So normally we would consider, the second house is in trine with the cusp of the sixth house, and that's in trine with the 10th house cusp, and so on. So if someone is looking at, gaining success in work, career, etc., this is going to work pretty nicely because they all support each other. So we'd have Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus, doesn't matter which sequence they're in, but they work together. The rhythm of the chart is united, so to speak. But when you have an interception, that rhythm is thrown off. So, good, look, Virgo on the second, supported by Capricorn on the sixth. Those money houses or, career houses are supporting each other. So rhythm, rhythm, rhythm. But then we get here, and it's like, wait a minute, this is a fire. This is not picking up that element and pulling you toward what you're going for. So somebody with this kind of a situation may get a lot of things done, but it's going to be harder for them to hit that 10th house cusp, like on a slide in, and feeling it the same, because that 10th house is not working with the other two houses that it would be. The rhythm of the signs of the elements is being thrown off. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please ask me. Okay, so what does the interception represent? It could, and this is, where you want to see certainly the rest of the chart, put it all together, synthesize it, talk to the person, because that can help you quite a bit to understand how is this interception actually functioning. So it may represent something that the native might not have faced up to in previous lifetimes, and now it's coming back as an issue that needs to be worked on. Where is it? What signs is it in? What planets might be also intercepted? And that's how you can look at that to analyze it, pick it apart, and find some answers. It could be something that you just tucked away, didn't pay attention to, and now you need to. It could be something that the native stands up for now because in previous lives they didn't stand up for it and they should have. So they're being given the lesson of having to work harder to access it. And it could be something that needs to be worked on as the native matures and understands this incarnation better. Now, one of the issues of interceptions is that very, very often at an early age, the person is completely unaware of the lack of this energy happening for them. So usually as they mature, if in fact as children they're not aware of it, and as they get older and mature, they become more aware of it. Hopefully they do if they're conscious about things. So that's why I'm saying it could be something they're holding back on, that they need to get to a certain point before they have the capability of working with that energy. The interception shows an area where the native does not fit into the normal environment of whatever the house that holds the interception is about. And that means that they must find a place or a system of their own that expresses what the environment has not conditioned for them. Also, that native can be uniquely herself because there's no indoctrination from the culture, because that energy of the sign does not have any outside access, ingress or egress. And it also might be a place where the person finds her own unique solution for dealing with that stifled energy. So the individuality and uniqueness of the situation can come into play. And of course, we all know that each chart is very individual and it is a unique situation. And then it also can bring out a new way of dealing things or a unique way of dealing with things. Now, the houses containing the interception, generally, these houses are significantly larger in terms of the number of degrees that are in that house. So even though you say, well, that energy is blocked, there is an emphasis on it through transits. So for example, in this, we're going to have a minimum of 32 degrees in that house, no matter how big or how small it actually is. It can't be smaller than 32 degrees because we'd have to have 30 degrees of the intercepted sign. And you're going to have at least 1 degree. So it could be 29, whatever, on the preceding cusp, and it could be 0 on the following cusp, but that's at least 1 degree of the preceding sign and the following sign. So minimum of 32 degrees. The planets contained within the interception also need to be addressed and thought about, because a planet ruling the intercepted sign becomes the co-ruler of the house. It has the planets that are in the interception have less power within that house than the ruler of the cusp, because they're not able to manifest that energy as easily or as overtly as if they had a cusp that allowed the energy to come forth. So in this example, we have a 4th house cusp of 27 Virgo, a 5th house cusp of 4 Scorpio, and then 30 full degrees of Libra entirely contained in that 4th house. We've got 2 degrees of Virgo, 30 degrees of Libra, 4 degrees of Scorpio. So this house alone has 36 degrees. And then, of course, because this is always going to be in polarity, the 10th house would also have 36 degrees. Okay, any questions so far? Nothing?
I have one.
Okay.
if I may. Okay, so first of all, I'm very fascinated by this subject matter,
Mhm.
but it depends on which house system you use. In Coke, I
Correct.
don't have interceptions. In Placidus, I do. In Campanus, I do. But they're
Mhm.
different signs in different houses.
Mhm.
And so, I guess the question is that this isn't. I don't use Campanus generally, but if I were, I would interpret it very, very different. And how do you look at that and you say, oh, okay,
No.
well, you don't. You
Well, I use Placidus, and sometimes I will also take a look at whole sign houses. But see, that's the thing. Everybody has an individual attitude toward how they do charts and how they read charts. So what I would suggest is that whichever system you are most comfortable with, or you feel you work with most accurately, because everybody's got a different attitude about that, that would be the one that I would go with. So for me in Placidus, I have an interception. And I'm going to come up with a couple different things where you see differences with progressions, for example. Does that answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do
Yeah.
you find that there are more interceptions in certain house systems than there are in others?
I do not. I haven't investigated that, so I'm not going to say authoritatively that, oh, in this system there are more. It's just that any quadrant system has the possibility of an interception.
Of
And
course.
you're going to have in different house systems, you are likely to have different interceptions. So like, for example, if I've had people read my chart in Koch as opposed to Placidus, my chart does not work in Koch. It doesn't reflect my actual life experiences, but Placidus does. So this is where I would say you probably have an affinity toward one house system that feels like this really works for me, whether it's for your chart or how you work with other people's charts. And I would say stick with that and see how that works out. If there's no interception in it, then go with that. But if there is, then think about, well, what might that actually reflect in terms of my life? Does it show something that's happening in my life? And for me, the interception I have in Placidus is exactly right with how my life has gone. So that's why I stick with it.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I want to say two things. Somebody said, what if the ruling planet of the intercepted sign is also intercepted?
Then you have a problem. Well,
Okay.
no, that makes it even more difficult to deal with it. That would be quite significant because the energy of that planet and the sign is also being so heavily blocked. And that, I would probably think of that as something quite seriously karmic. Of course, I look at the whole chart as being a karmic situation to begin with. But that would, this is part of unraveling it and really trying to understand, why is this happening? Why did you choose to come into this life with this much blockage? Where does this come from? Does it come from a past life in which you may have, not paid attention to this energy, so not been accessing it properly, or maybe ignoring whatever this is about in someone else and you harmed them via that? I mean, this is really hard to say without looking at a whole chart and without, talking with the person, maybe getting some other kind of a reading to substantiate what you're thinking is going on, like a past life regression or Akashic records or something else that might help to support understanding the interception in the chart. But you'd really have to work with figuring out, okay, how are we going to work with this? What is this about? What has it blocked in your life? Because not only is the sign intercepted or blocked, but also the planet that rules it, that could help, being in a different house and a different sign, could help to open it up maybe a little. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. Whoever asked the question, somebody does say, comments, some say delayed rather than blocked.
But if you become aware of it later in life, then absolutely. It can become unblocked also through progression. But that also is quite dependent on the evolutionary level of the person, the consciousness of the person. Are they paying attention?
Yeah.
And having had the interception that I have, I was not aware as a child. I was not aware of the of astrology, and I wasn't aware of what was happening in my chart. But as I did begin to understand, I did know that there was a blockage. I couldn't have put a handle on it. I mean, I could have said to you, yeah, I have difficulty doing this, but I wouldn't have understood it from an astrological perspective until I started doing astrology and realized, oh my goodness, here it is reflected in my chart, exactly the issues that I had growing up, conscious of, but didn't know how to deal with them. Not that I deal with it better now, but at least I'm more conscious of it.
And one question that's being asked that probably is coming up is saying there's no interceptions in my natal chart, but what if you do, there is one in a relocated chart? But I also see that's your next slide. So
it's not my next slide, but it's getting there. So yeah,
okay.
We're going to actually talk about that because it is quite interesting to look at. So, okay, now if we have an interception in the natal chart, it doesn't have to remain static, because we have transits going through that interception that will activate it and possibly help us to get a more of a perception of what is being blocked and maybe activate it so we can get it going and start doing something about it. Progressions, it can progress out of being intercepted. So, we have the possibility of having that energy wake up in us as we progress and relocating. So if I'm trying to think, I had at one time thought of moving from Chicago to Phoenix, and I didn't. But if I moved to Phoenix, I don't have an interception. And I thought, that could be pretty good, but I, didn't go. So transits, are we okay? No more questions or comments?
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, basically, I'm still a little unclear about, someone wrote in the chat and freaked me out being a Virgo about a double whammy. I have the 12th house intercepted in Aries, but my moon is there. I have the 6th
This is
house.
personal. I'm sorry. No offense, but can we hold personal stuff till the end?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Just the double whammy freaked me out, but I can wait. No problem.
Yeah, don't freak out. You're fine. I can tell. Okay, great. So transits. Now, we've said that the houses that have interceptions have a lot more degrees in them than your average house. So they're going to be larger and wider, making those transits take a lot longer to go through them, which gives us more time to become aware of it, more time to deal with it. So, thinking about Pluto, for example, it can spend over 20 years in a sign, which means whatever house has that interception, it's going to be there a lot longer. This gives you a lot of time to play with it, a lot of time to become aware with it, to become fluent with it, so to speak, so that you begin to understand it. There are, Saturn going through, they're going to take a long time. Every year, the sun is going to hit those intercepted signs and planets and bring some kind of brightness to it, focus on it. All of these are going to happen. So transits can help us to become aware and begin to deal with the blockage of energy. And through the transits, the person's going to be confronted with the issues and that are going to require real work, and the time to accomplish that work. We'll get the time, especially with the outer planets taking so long to go through there. So the slower planets, they bring big lessons, and they also bring time with them, time to look at what's happening, time to experience the nuances of the signs and the planets and the houses that have interceptions. So we do have opportunities to become more conscious and in tune with these energies through transits themselves. And then progressions. So you have an interception, but as time goes forward and your chart progresses, the progression may cause the interception to progress out of being intercepted. So the progressed planet, if you place your progressed planets around the natal chart, it may show that intercepted planets are no longer intercepted. But the natal chart, since it is always there underneath everything, is still always going to be there in your psyche. You may pass out of some of the trauma of it, if in fact this is trauma, and I'm not saying it is, but it's always going to be there in some residual effect. And also, even though you have the interception, your life experience, especially going through the progressions and the progressed changes reflecting those growths and changes, can bring into manifestation what has been intercepted and therefore not immediately accessible in your consciousness. So here we're looking at a chart, a natal chart that has an interception of Pluto and Saturn in the 7th and Mars in the 1st. So this is a Leo to Aquarius interception. But as this person progressed, as the chart progressed, we see these the intercepted Mars, because it's changed signs, it's progressed over a period of years, is no longer intercepted if you place the progressed chart around the natal chart. Now, that Pluto and Saturn, because they're so slow moving through progression, are, likely to stay intercepted forever. How does that work for the native? Well, that's part of interpreting the chart. So, if you were working with this individual, you might want to address that. Oh, your Mars energy has become accessible to you, very shortly thereafter, at a very early age. Because look, Mars was intercepted at 29 degrees of Aquarius. So, this progression was, the interception was progressed out of interception at a very, very early age for this person. So they may not even have been completely aware of any kind of blockage. But from a natal perspective, they can feel this blockage. And I know this person very well. And I can tell you that behind the scenes, this person, if you knew him very, very, very well, was a bit quirky. A lot more quirky than people ever realized with that Capricorn ascendant. So it did stay intercepted to an extent throughout his life, but it also was allowed to manifest that Mars energy that originally was blocked. I hope that makes sense. So here's the standalone progressed chart. Here we have the chart with the natal chart with the interception. But if you, a lot of people work with progressed charts as a standalone chart, so with progressed cusps. And if you do that, okay, that particular interception of Mars in Aquarius and Pluto and Saturn in Leo, that interception by progression in the progressed cusp chart is not there. But look what happened. There's a whole new set of interception here. So in the progressed standalone chart, Mars, Venus, and the moon are now intercepted. But of course, that's going to change as the progression progresses. And Neptune is also intercepted. So, this is, if I place that exact same progressed chart around the natal, we see from the natal perspective, that energy has opened up for Mars. And if we look at it now, I don't know how you guys look at progressed charts. I tend to personally feel that I get more information about how the person has evolved by looking at the progressed chart around the natal chart. But I do know a number of, and I do take a look at the standalone to get some kind of an idea, because every once in a while it gives you information you wouldn't have gotten otherwise about where the person is at right now. But, a lot of people I know do use the standalone progressed cusp chart as well. So you take that for however you do your work in it and what works for you in looking at this. All right. So, and a standalone progressed cusp chart also at a different point in time may show that the interception has gone away. And this is a standalone progressed cusp chart. This particular interception is no longer there. There are no interceptions. So, I like to look at all of this and then see what do I think is really what I need to work with here. And that can vary depending on who you're working with and, however this feels right. And I do base a lot of what I'm doing on, does this speak to me in this point or not? Now, relocation is another way to deal with this. And if a person is having interceptions in the natal chart, and you cast the birth chart for a different locality that they're relocating to, whether it's another part of the US or a different part of the world, you may find that in the relocated natal chart, there are no interceptions. And you want to be conscious of the opposite possibility happening, that the person has no interceptions, but when they move, there's an interception in the relocated chart. So they want to be aware, maybe that's something you want to avoid. So maybe you don't want to move to this place. Usually people don't care that much. They're willing to deal with it, but that can happen. Several years ago, when I did this class live, someone in the class, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact chart situation, but I do remember what the issue was. Her son had moved from Chicago to Phoenix. And when he really wanted to get married and, have children, have a family and settle down. And he was already about 40, I think, at the time. And she said, he dates a lot. He has lots of different girlfriends, but he never finds anybody he connects with. And when he lived in Chicago, he really had great relationships, but he was too young to get married. So we said, let's cast a relocation chart for him. And in the relocation chart, there was an interception involving relationships, whereas in Chicago, there wasn't. So that issue of relationships, and I can't remember if it was Venus and whatever, or Libra or whatever it was, but it indicated that he didn't have any of these issues when he lived in Chicago, because everything about his chart was available to him. But when he was living in Phoenix, relationships were blocked. So, that can be a situation to consider as well. So we're all saying, make him move back to Chicago. He'll get married right away. I don't know if he did, though. Now, here's a Chicago birth chart with an interception. And here is relocating to Scottsdale, Arizona. No interception. Look at the changes. All of the energy of this chart is available to the native. So this can be sometimes, I don't know that anybody moves for this particular purpose, but it might be depending on, how your issues are. So these are things to consider when someone is moving. Will the interception go away, or will there be an interception that wasn't there before? Now, what do the intercepted signs mean in the horoscope? Okay, these signs that are intercepted indicate a need or a characteristic or something in that person's life that the environment that she's in does not recognize as being there. It isn't that the people in the outside world wouldn't want to help or wouldn't want to address it. They can't see it because it doesn't have an outlet. And so this is what is happening there. The people would address your issue, but they don't see that it exists. And with the intercepted energy, even if the native is aware of it, they've got to work really hard to get it out to the rest of the world in the capacity of, hey, I do have this need. Yeah, so listen to me. I'm trying to tell you about it. You're not seeing me manifest it. You go, oh, that's crazy. You don't have that, but I do. So you want to make the world aware of it, but you as the native have to be aware of it yourself before you can work with that. And until somebody becomes aware of what is being blocked in themselves, this would be really difficult. So this is where we're saying it's not necessarily that the outside world wouldn't allow fulfilling these needs or help you. They don't know that it's there. And what they see is what the cusp on the sign on the cusp of the house that's holding that interception, that's what they see. And the person has to recognize for themselves, I've got this energy that isn't able to manifest or be expressed. I've got to figure out how to do that. And as an astrologer, this is something you really can help them with. And we know that via progressions, we can see that this might change. So thinking about this, what's so important about that cusp? Well, the cusp is the doorway in and out of that house, and it's where it's the sign through which we express the energies of that house. So what's in the house, it needs a way to express. And if there's no cusp with that sign, the energy of that sign doesn't have a way to purely or even close to purely express itself. It's going to be stepped down or changed or manipulated by the sign it has to work through to get anything out. So the sign on the cusp is the environment of that area of life, and the intercepted sign is what the native really needs beyond what the environment provides. Now, I said before that as you go farther away from the equator, and particularly at the poles, you are more likely to have an interception. And sometimes, and I'm sorry, I wish I could have found that dual interception chart, but I just couldn't find it anymore. It makes sense because it shows what your environment, maybe it could be family environment, it could be exterior environment, your social milieu, it could be anything, but the environment in which the native is functioning does not allow for the expression of this. And if you think about, if you're living at the North Pole, for example, how much opportunity for expression of all kinds of things would your environment allow for you? What would it give you the opportunity to express? A lot different than if you're living in a big city near the equator, where you have possibilities for just about anything. So if you look at it that way, this is a reflection of the environment for this particular individual, regardless of where they are. The environment is blocking something or not allowing it to be expressed or giving it the ability to be expressed. So one of the things that we have to think about is that the native has to come to a point where they can identify what's being blocked, nurture it, and bring it out, but they have to get a consciousness of it. And this is often something when somebody comes for a first reading, and they know that something's not quite expressing, and you start to tell them, well, gee, this is being blocked. It's you can see on their face that it's like a light bulb went off of, thank you. I understand something about myself now that has just always been kind of needling at me, and I couldn't quite grab onto what it was. So if they may experience a lot of frustration in trying to express this, but especially if there's a planet in there as well, and it's not going to be easy. So I'm sorry, I live 2 blocks from the main fire station and main police station, so I get a lot of sirens.
Same problem in New York City. I have sirens going by all the time.
I forgot that part. Okay, so there may not be something in the environment that's there to help awaken the native. This is where transits can surely help. And there may also be a lack of input or response from the outside world. So the need for this person to express this is going to stay hidden until something triggers it, which can be a transit, it can be a crisis, something stimulating it so it can begin to express, or the native can become conscious of it. Now, usually a delay in the expression until the person has learned enough about themselves, about where they are, the environment that they're in, enough to say, oh, look, I can start bringing this out. I'm aware of it. I can start working on manifesting it. And, that could be through progression. Transits can certainly help that. Here's what you want to think of it, how this works. It's like if you're looking at a tandem room, and a tandem room is a room that is attached to another room, but the only way to the tandem room is through the room it's attached to. There's no direct entry in or out of this tandem room. So you have to go through this room to get access to the tandem. This is our interception. Got to go through the cusp of the house it's located in order to get this energy out. But as it is going through, it's going to be changed or tempered by the cusp sign of the that it has to go through. So in reverse order, to leave the tandem room, turn to the larger, you've got to go through the room with the actual entry. So that's our house containing the interception. All right, so for example, here's somebody with an interception, and this poor gentleman also has an intercepted moon, as well as an intercepted sun. Not easy. And by the way, I'm going to throw this out there. Maybe somebody knows about this. I have heard, and I don't know how valid this is, that an intercepted moon often indicates somebody who was adopted. And this person was actually adopted. So I don't know if that's true or not. I only have this one chart of the adoptee, and it pans out there. But anyway, this native has a sun in Scorpio. It's intercepted. Libra is on the cusp of the house in which Scorpio and his sun and Venus and Mercury are intercepted. And this person is very, very willful and very strong and powerful. And he is really always looking to control. I'm sorry, Venus is not intercepted. It just happens in this circle. He is behind the scenes when he is in a very closed, intimate environment, will express the need to be in control and manipulate other people, so to speak, sort of the negative Scorpio attributes. But when he deals with people who are outside of his very, very closed home environment, they only see the Libra part. They never see the Scorpio need to control others. And he does manifest this. This is my ex-husband, by the way, so I can really speak knowledgeably about this. And I've talked with him about this. So, people see him very Libran, and they see, he's so easygoing, and he's, always wants to be harmonious and everything. Well, that's how he shows it to you. But when he's at home, he's a very different person. So he is inside of himself, he has issues of trying to take over, control the situation. But when he really, even that he has to do in somewhat of a more Libran manner, even though you can see it's coming out. The Scorpio is the negative controlling power issue of Scorpio is coming out. It's still stepped down a bit from having to go through that Libra cusp in order to manifest. So the outside world does not see him as a forceful, controlling human being, but he actually is. Now, he has to learn to express that Scorpio energy through the Libra until he can develop the energy of the intercepted sign to access it, express it, or until it passes out by progression. So, we've been divorced a long time, but we're still friends. So I still watch this, and it still happens. So I don't think he's gotten very much in touch with getting rid of the interception or dealing with it. Any questions or comments so far?
Yeah, we do have a couple that may not directly relate to what's going on. Kat O said that she has an intercepted moon and she's not adopted, but she has a sister who's adopted who doesn't have an intercepted moon.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that information, because I thought, it works in this one that I know for sure is adopted, but I wondered, how valid is that? So I'm going to let that go off to the side. Thank you very much for that input. Anything else?
Two other questions that might be coming up, but I don't know. One person was asking, what if the intercepted planet is retrograde? Does that change your interpretation of it?
I don't think so. No, I would still just look at that as how I'd look at retrograde energy being more internalized for the person, more personalized as to how they're going to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So, the difficulty of expression is still there from the interception. And if you consider that, and I don't necessarily feel that a retrograde planet has difficulty expressing, I think it's just more internally expressed. It still might be something that is more difficult to, especially then more difficult to express outwardly, but the inward idea of the retrograde is still operating. I hope that answers.
Okay, and the other question, which may be coming up later on, somebody wondered, does the overly expansive sign covering two cusps, does that become more powerful? That may be later in the lecture. I don't know. I just wanted to mention.
Did they just do that for the next thing we're going to talk about? Because
No, they mentioned this about 3 minutes ago.
oh,
So
okay. Well, psychic then, right? Looking into the future. I'm
Before we
kidding.
go on, I do have actually
Okay.
one question about the
Okay.
nodes. If the
No.
nodes are intercepted, have you
Mhm.
found that it takes people longer to come into touch with their life purpose, or to, because it's different than a planet, and depending
Yeah.
on where they are, they're not unlikely, because they don't travel that quickly.
think-
They're unlikely to progress.
I haven't honestly worked with that many people who have intercepted nodes. Strangely enough, they've got just as much a chance of being intercepted as anything else. But the way that I would look at that, and I'd certainly want to talk with them about it, is that maybe the karmic issues that they're dealing with are deeper maybe, and maybe going to take them a little bit longer to be able to work with, that they're sort of maybe setting up in this life an understanding that is going to have to come in later because they need to work on other things before they can come up to that. So I'd have a general concept of, it's going to be a little harder to access the life purpose or the reason for being here, or how you're going to play that out this incarnation. But I would also, be thinking that they can do it. It's just maybe not going to be as early in life or as quickly in life as if they were not intercepted. And you'd also want to look at the rulers of those, the nodes, to see what are they doing? Are they able to help? Are they in signs where they might be exalted and that will help? Or, are they debilitated? What's going on? What are the aspects to them? Does that help, Greg?
Yeah, I was thinking late bloomer is
It
what
could
came
be.
to mind, and I was wondering if you
yeah.
had that experience. But yeah.
Like I say, I haven't dealt with that many people who've had intercepted nodes, so I don't have this is how it works. But once again, I wouldn't say this is how it works for sure, because it's such an individual thing that, as I've said, about a few other things, I really need to look at the whole chart to see what is happening there. Because I'm one of these people who looks at, if we're talking about why are you here and how is that going to play out, I'm looking at the position of Pluto in the chart to say, this is why you're here. This is what you came for. And I look at the axis of the nodes and their placement, which houses as where you're going to be working on this. And then the signs as to exactly how is that going to be happening. So if they were intercepted, I'd be, really giving a lot of thought to, okay, where are they? What's going on in these areas of your life? What sign is on the cusps of this? So, and what are the ruling planets of the signs that the nodes are in? What are they doing? So there's a lot of elements I would be trying to take in, sort out, and put into some reasonable way of expressing that to the
We're
person.
gonna get you food.
Sorry?
Yeah, and then we're gonna go home. But she's
somebody asking a question is we're losing your voice wherever you are.
I'm not sure they were asking a question or maybe
Okay.
talking to someone else in their room.
Okay.
I'm not
Lynn,
sure.
there is one other question somebody
Okay.
had about the specific chart you just showed.
Oh, okay.
And the question was, so the Venus in that chart isn't intercepted?
No, it is
Because
not.
it
I'm
isn't
sorry.
okay. Yes.
Because it's in Libra. It just happens to be in
Okay.
that house. Yeah,
Okay,
and I'm
good, good.
sorry, I should have drawn this circle smaller, but hey, I'm fallible. So, okay. Anything else?
Not at the moment that I can see. So
Okay.
keep rolling.
Okay, so good question about what happens with those houses, where you've got the same sign on two cusps. These are oh, I'm sorry, we're not there yet. I was looking at this with houses and thinking we were. But when you're looking at the intercepted signs and the houses that they're in, you want to consider the characteristics as I was just saying, and the meanings of the signs that are intercepted, because there's a lot of information to sort through and put into something coherent. Then you want to consider, well, which houses are they in? So what areas of life are being affected by this? What signs do they occupy? How is the combination location of the signs, the house location is going to be interpreted, and the conditions of the rulers of those signs. And what aspects are the rulers afflicted? Do they have a lot of very difficult aspects to them, or do they have a lot of trines? So this, trines would be helpful. But also the difficult aspects might be prodding. So that could be helpful too. And this is why I say you really have to look at it on an extremely individual basis. Okay, rulers of the intercepted signs in houses, personal energies that need development and usage in order for the intercepted sign qualities to come forth. Aspects to the rulers of intercepted signs show where we have opportunities to bring forth the intercepted energy. So what are those aspects to the rulers doing? Are they helping to bring it out? Are they pushing? Like a square, you don't sit still with a square. We complain about them, but squares make people move and do things. So they are very valuable, even though they're not always fun. So when we are looking at the ruler, we want to think about this: what location in the chart does this ruling planet have? So what does that tell you about a place where in your life, an area in your life where the energy of the intercepted planet can be helped? Where can we look in that area where we can start to manifest some energy? What's that house location? What is the condition of that planet? Is it in its domicile, its detriment? Is it exalted? Is it in its fall? So that condition is going to tell us how strong is this planet? Is it able to help a lot? Or is it debilitated and boy, this is going to be even harder than we might have thought at first? And are the aspects easy or difficult? If somebody's very conscious, one of the things when we talk about people with like a grand trine, it's nice to have that grand trine as long as you do something with it, because you can just be lazy with it. So trines, if people are saying, yeah, hey, look at this wonderful flowing energy I have access to, I'm going to use that to, move myself ahead, then an easy aspect can be very helpful. But sometimes a difficult aspect can also be helpful because it forces the native to pay attention to it, because it's, that squeaky wheel kind of attitude. Okay, here we are with the intercepted houses as opposed to intercepted signs. And when we talk about intercepted houses, we're talking about two houses that have the same sign. So the house that is between the two cusps with the same sign is the intercepted house. And there is purpose to this as well. Okay, so houses that share the same signs because of the interception are the intercepted houses. So when we have the interception, because we have two signs that don't have any rulership in the house, two other signs have to take over and make up for what should be on the, something's got to be on a cusp, right? I'm sorry?
Cindy,
Okay. Something? No? Okay.
Cindy, no, okay.
Okay, so, there's got to be two signs compensating for the two signs that don't rule a cusp, because every cusp has to have a sign on it. So the house with the smaller degree on the cusp is the intercepted house, as it is intercepted by that sign. So this 7 degrees on the second house cusp of Leo, 29 degrees of Leo on the third house cusp. So that second house is the one that it's an intercepted house, not an intercepted sign, but an intercepted house. This is not a difficulty, it's the opposite. So the intercepted house is it generally, not always, but generally contains a relatively smaller number of degrees within it. So why, transits go through it much faster. Why? Because you've got this down. You don't need to spend a lot of time on it. All right, so houses with duplicate signs. They show areas of life that have some connection to each other in their functioning. The traits of the sign on these two sequential houses are very developed in the native. That's why they can take care of two houses, because the energy of what that sign is, you've got it. You're not working on it, you've got it. So it can take over 2 houses, no problem. The native is easily able to control or dominate the areas of life designated by the first of the 2 houses, and it's exactly the same with the opposite sign. So concerning the planets that rule the duplicate signs, they're required to do at least twice the normal work, but that's not a problem because you have got this energy down pat, no problem. You're very capable with it. You've already developed the traits of this sign and you have the power to control the environment of that house and that sign. So you can manifest this, and this is certainly going to be conditioned by the rest of the chart. You're going to use it for good or you're going to use it for evil. And I don't really mean it that way, but positive or negative manner. So you want to look at the aspects to the rulers of these signs to see the talents, the abilities, the challenges, the shortcomings, and how you're going to deal with using these signs. So looking at the 2 houses with duplicate signs. Now, remember, we've got the opposite situation going on. So the 2nd house and the 3rd house have Leo, which means the 8th house and the 9th house have Aquarius. So the energies of the 2nd and the 8th, the native has this down. They're not working on this. They already do it. But they're taking the ideas, the energy of this, and they're so good at it, they've got it so well taken care of that they can filter it into a new area as well and start to bring in the benefits and characteristics of this sign into the next house. So the house with the lower number on the cusp is the one that represents a developed or mastered ability in that area of life that is so well understood by the native that now that energy is being projected into the next house. And that next house is the one with the larger degree on it, or the area of life that is going to find expression now with this energy in order for the native to grow from what they already have mastered, so to speak. And now they can bring that mastery into a whole new realm and grow with that. So the native is moving into areas represented by the next house in order to grow in what she already knows and has mastered, but is going to now bring those abilities into a whole new territory. So that's where the growth comes in. The native is being challenged to take something that's very comfortable, very well understood, and move it into a new usage, a new area. Does that make sense for everybody? Any questions?
There are a couple of questions here.
Okay, go ahead.
Greg has one. I'll let him field his first, but Kat is asking, how about when the duplicate house's sign's ruler is the sign intercepted? Example, she has 2 Cancer houses, but her moon is intercepted in Aries.
Okay,
Would that
so
make
Steve,
sense?
this is where honestly you've got to look at the whole chart. What and I'm sorry, when I'm going to read a chart for somebody, I usually do a lot of preparation to get myself really in the chart so I can flow with this. So go with me. I'm right off the top of my head, and it may not be that valid, but you've got Cancer energy that you're good with, that you can use in 2 different houses because you've mastered it. But why is that moon being blocked? What sign is that moon in? That's going to be very relevant because what sign the moon is in, why is it functioning that way? Why did your soul choose to have the ruler of that says, hey, I've got Cancer energy down, no problem. Why is the ruler of that energy not able to manifest quite as overtly or strongly as it might if it weren't intercepted? And I really need to look at what's going on with that moon, the sign that the moon is in, what aspects to the moon. There's just too much. I'm not going to be able to give you a valid interpretation for your specific situation, but that's what I would look at and start to go from there. What else is happening to the moon from the rest of the chart? What is it doing? And try to get a good idea of why it's set up that way. And that that would, for me, I may not be for somebody else, but for me, I'd really want to sit back and allow to gestate in my person to start to see, okay, now I'm seeing what's going on with this moon. Now I have an idea of why this is happening and would be able to talk with you about why that is happening for you and see if that resonates with you as the person I'm reading for or not. So if you want to do that, that's what I would suggest that you do. Look at it from, what's happening with that moon? Why is that moon there when I know I have Cancer energy under control here, to the extent that I can actually start using it in 2 different houses? It's that strong for me. Now, you would also have Capricorn on 2 different houses. And so, I don't know if Saturn's intercepted, but maybe Saturn is a key for that. Because the polarity of the moon to Saturn in terms of rulership with the 4th and the 10th, that might be something significant. I don't know without looking at the whole chart itself.
And Greg,
Sorry. Go ahead.
Greg is asking, well, you can ask the question. I could read your question.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. But before I get to the question I already posed in the chat, I just want to ask a question about this example that you have with Leo on the 2nd and the 3rd house cusp. If the sun were in Libra, then it would be in fall. And so you're talking about a very developed energy, but the ruler would be debilitated. Does that make it even harder in that situation?
It could slow it down a bit. But you always see, even though the sun is, even though the sun is in its fall, it's still functioning. It's still functioning in Libra. It's just that for the sun, this is like, oh, darn, look where I am. I like to be all about me, and I don't get to be. But, here's what I could do, because I'm pretty strong and I'm pretty shiny. So, maybe I'm looking at dealing with other people's issues, and I'm doing that in, I've got the 2nd house making money, the talents of the sun, the talents of Leo, and I'm bringing that into my local environment in my neighborhood. Maybe I'm writing and I'm talking about what goes on. Maybe I do newsletters. I don't know. Maybe I am working on helping people in my community to learn, the basics and things that they need to survive. Maybe that's how my sun in Libra is manifesting the Leo energies through working with other people in my environment, where I've got the talents of, this is what I have, these abilities, this way of shining and bringing, because 2nd house is my personal values, my self-worth, what's important to me. And I've got that down and I'm taking it out into my community. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm just
exactly. I mean, what's very interesting is that obviously the 2nd house that has the Leos on the 3rd house, that's going to be the intercepted. That's going to be the house that's going to be intercepted. So the more powerful one is going to have to be what it works through. The question I had before is that, just going back for a couple slides, was that what if the ruler of the intercepted planet is in the same house, but is not intercepted?
That could be beneficial. Are you looking at? Were you looking here?
Anything like that? But yeah, like let's say, for example, there's an intercepted house, but something's in the 6th house,
right?
But it's not intercepted itself.
Yeah,
so
the ruler of the 6th house is in the 6th house. That can be very beneficial. I will tell you that.
No, that's what I mean. I mean, the ruler of the intercepted planets is in the 6th house.
Okay,
but it's not in the same sign that's intercepted.
Yeah, well, that could be helpful because it's in that same area. So it's saying, you know what? I know we have some difficulties in this area, but I'm here to help in a very specific, very directed way, because I'm right here with you. And I'm in a sign that has access to it to express out in the chart. And so that can be helpful. But once again, this is an isolated part, and we need to look at the whole thing. What's happening to that ruler? Is it debilitated? It's not in the sign that's intercepted, but what is it in? Is it in a sign in which it's very comfortable? Does it have difficult aspects to it? All kinds of things. So
great.
But that's a good question. See, that's the thing. And this is not just with interceptions, but with anything that you're looking at with the chart, there are so many parts to it. To just, we're just focusing on one thing. So interpreting that is not all that easy because we don't see what's going on in the rest of it.
By the way, I do want to mention a couple of people have asked how can they book a reading with you? I just said, go to her website. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
it's at the end of this, and you're going to get this in, in the recording that will be sent to you, because we're sharing this. My information is on the last slide.
Okay.
So, and I can, I can give, I don't know. Let's work it out at the end. How about that?
Mhm.
Okay, where are we? We're over here. All right, and we did all of this. Yes, and we're over here. Okay, so now we've talked about how this energy in the second house, and I will tell you that this is actually how this manifests. This person does bring information and, all kinds of things, works on who they are, from the sun kind of energy, and brings communication out into the community in which they live. So that is really happening in that way. So, there's just so many things to think about with how can this work? And that's why I say, I will, when we're sitting around chatting and stuff, say, oh, look at this, and I think it means this and that. But really, if I'm doing a reading for someone, I've done a lot of preparation, because I need to get into the whole chart in order to start feeling. I have a lot of water, feeling what is this about? How is this really working for them? And then I have some ideas, and I make extensive notes that I don't look at when I'm actually doing the reading, but at least somewhere in the back of my head, I have some ideas that I really want to put together, and I feel organized. I also have a lot of Virgo. So when I'm sitting talking with the person, we've got some directions that we're going through, but very flexible as we're going to get information while we're talking and having responses. I hope that makes some sense. Okay, now, since the native is mastered or is completely comfortable with the activities of the first house of the two duplicated signs, so the houses of the that have the same sign, she does not need to focus too much attention on the areas of life, especially of the first one. Transits take less time going through that house because it doesn't have as many degrees. What has been mastered in the first of the houses with the duplicated sign on it are the skills, the talents, the attitudes, whatever comes out of that house has been mastered. And these can then trickle over, be pushed over, however you want to see it, into the following house. Now, the two houses with the same sign tend to operate in tandem with each other. So because they have the same sign, they have the same ruler, they're working together. The two houses and what they represent need to become integrated. So that second house, the talents I bring every day are moving into helping the third house to be expressed, moving that energy into third house issues as well. So these two houses need to function together, and they don't have a problem doing it. Why? They have the same ruler. The planet that rules the sign on the two house cups shows the energy that must merge for those areas of life represented by the two houses, because this is a place of energy where the native is completely comfortable, adept at. So that first house doesn't need to have an issue. It's got plenty of energy to share with the next house. So a person with the same sign, this is just an example, on houses 6 and 7 might bring his work information, his work energy into a partnership situation. So this could be a marriage where the spouses work together. So bringing the 6th into the 7th, or a partnership of close friends who work together or go into business together. So this is where we're looking at. The 6th house is the house that is the intercepted house, has the smaller number of degrees on it, and the whole house is whatever sign that is. And then the 7th house has the larger number and fewer of those degrees of that sign, but it is picking up and connecting those two houses. So 6th house connects to connects to activities of 7th house, marriage, partnership, close friends. Now, with this situation, a person would have the opposite signs on houses 12 and 1, to 6 to 12, 7 to 1. 12th house issues are hidden enemies. self-undoing, subconscious. But also on the nicer level, it can be very spiritual, being connected to the cosmos, right? But your first house issues are the identity, personal projection as we wish to be seen. Not necessarily how our community or social milieu perceives us, but how we put ourselves out there to be perceived. So here the native may feel that the person she is in business with or works with is undermining her and or her individuality. That's the negative side. She could feel that the work arrangement is stifling her ability to express herself. She might begin to mistrust the partner because all of our signs, don't forget, all of our planets have easy good stuff and difficult negative stuff. So the 12th house could be that, maybe they do a business together that's very spiritual. And this is helping the 12th house spirituality, the connection to the cosmos, directly communicate with how this person puts herself out into the world. This can be done quite positively. It could be difficult. It could be easy. It could be somewhere in between. Anything, questions, comments? Everybody okay? All right. Some astrologers consider this to be a pattern where the native is repairing or correcting or making up for past faults in the house with the smaller number on the cusp and bringing fulfillment of past issues into the present in the house with the larger number on the cusp. And when I wrote this, I was thinking, I haven't really decided how I think of it. It could be that, but it doesn't have to be. It also may be that in this incarnation, the native needs this blockage of the interception in order to concentrate on other things in the incarnation. So once again, you want to look at the whole chart to get a feeling, an idea, some kind of way in which it makes sense. And it makes sense for how the person's life is unfolding. So a lot to really put together on this. But I find it pretty fascinating. So same sign, two different houses. The house where the intercepted ruler is located can indicate what caused the interception. So this may, you want to see who's the ruler, what's going on with it, where is it? And the planet ruling the intercepted sign shows by its house location what may have contributed to the need for the interception to occur. So, this is from a very karmic perspective. What happened? What's going on that your soul said, I need to block this because I need to learn the lessons of it in this particular way. And I'm a reincarnationist, so I always look at this from a karmic perspective. The native needs to find a way to express the matters of the house where the intercepted signs ruling planet is located in a way that is no longer bound by social restrictions and conditioning. So the intercepted signs ruling planet is saying, I've got a lot of stuff to deal with here because I've got, the sign I rule doesn't have good access to in this chart. So there's a lot of energy that ruling planet's going to have to deal with, a lot of blocked energy that we want to see what's happening to it to see how it can bring it out. Look to the houses ruled by the intercepted planets, if you have intercepted planets, as those houses will be a path for bringing out the intercepted energy. Now, the person with the intercepted moon and the two houses with Cancer, this is something to think about that. Look at the houses, you've got two houses that the energy there, that Cancer energy is already mastered. But so why is the moon intercepted in a different sign? Why is it intercepted? And that's what you want to start taking a look at. And you need to look at your whole chart in order to understand that. Make note of the aspects to the intercepted planets and the planet ruling intercepted houses. So what's going on? Who's affecting it? Interpretation of this. You want to identify the intercepted signs and the duplicated signs, because that's what when you're working with the interception, that's what you want to look at. Identify the rulers of the intercepted and the duplicated signs to see if they are intercepted as well. What are the ruler's conditions? This can show how much help the ruler of an interception can be in working with the energy. Is it dignified, debilitated, afflicted, well aspected? Look at transits and progressions affecting the interceptions. Is there anything else affecting that interception? Are there eclipses that are hitting it? What are the declinations? And we talked about declinations in the discussion before the presentation. Just any kinds of things like that. What's happening to them? Where can energy be accessed that might help in this? And thank you for joining me. So here's my information. Okay. Now I'm going to stop share and hopefully see people. So what are questions? I hope I can answer. I can't hear you, Anthony. You're black. You're.
There's a few in the chat room that I'll read them out. And what if the ruler of the intercepted sign is conjunct your ascendant? Then it has an expression. Yes, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. And
Yeah.
Uranus conjuncts her ascendant. So
Yeah.
you would
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat room also suggested that means she'll be given many, many chances to work on and learn from Uranus.
I would think.
Aquarius, yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
The ruler of one of my intercepted planets is my rising sign. No one ever said anything about all my interceptors. Oh, this is interesting.
Oh, wait. No, it's not your rising sign because the rising sign, whatever sign that is, has a planet that rules it.
I wrote that incorrectly. My Mercury is intercepted. Gemini,
Okay.
Mercury, Gemini is my rising sign.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
So, I'm sorry. What the ruler of your ascendant is intercepted.
and retrograde, yes. So
Okay.
Mercury is
And what sign is Mercury in?
Libra.
Okay. So I would look to Venus and see what Venus is doing because Venus is the ruler. Venus is the dispositor of that Mercury.
Okay.
Can Venus help it?
Venus is in Scorpio. in the next-
Okay, well, that's not good. And it's not bad. It's, I don't really look at, I sort of, like one of my friends, when you look at his chart, it was great because somebody in a class looked at his chart and he was there. He's doing astrology too. And she said, wow, you are really screwed. And we're all laughing because that's what I've always told them. Whoa, you're really screwed with this chart. So it's kind of a joke as I say that because nothing is unhelpable. You just have to find the way in which it can be helped. And that's the key. And that's the difficulty. And that's why I say, looking at these very specifically and very individually is not as easy to help you with if I can't see the entire chart and what is happening in that and get a view of everything about you, if that makes some sense. But I'd look to Venus. What's Venus doing? Okay, Venus is not in great shape in Scorpio. But, look at the why. What's going on in your life? What are the issues you're facing that tell us why you needed to deal with your life in this capacity? Why did you need Venus in Scorpio as opposed to Venus in Libra or Venus in Pisces? Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
And, I was going to say, you might look to your Venus in Scorpio and discover it's trining Jupiter. So that might offset it too. This is, again, what we talked about even before we started. It's a whole process. And although cookbooks can help you understand little bits, you've got to string it all together into a picture.
That's why I always tell people, all these computer programs that'll do the interpretation and you print out this whole story for yourself. They're fine, but they don't synthesize it.
Exactly.
Like just trying to.
And they're fine. And I like to read them. They're fun, but they don't synthesize. They can't interpret what you're really all about because people, and this is where people say, well, how does astrology work if it says this over here is bad and then over here it says basically the same thing is good, but how is that working? Because it's not synthesizing and interpreting. How does that balance out? Go ahead, Anthony. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, no, using the same thing you're talking about, when you read all those things in those computer generated charts, it's almost like you're getting a list of ingredients and no recipe.
Yeah,
because the question becomes, how is it combined?
Right.
One of your planets may be garlic, but maybe you're making a birthday cake. and it's not going to work for you. But if maybe you're making, some Mexican dish,
I'm
pile
going
on
to
the
steal
garlic.
that from you. That was good. I'm going to steal that.
Steal away.
I
Okay.
will. Thank you.
Well, earlier you said that I must have had a duplicate Capricorn house, which I do.
No, I
And-
didn't say, because, you're the one with cancer.
Right,
With-
so I do,
oh, okay.
it is a duplicate Capricorn house, and you asked where was my Saturn.
Mhm.
My Saturn is in the duplicate Cancer houses.
Okay, see, this is very complicated.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I can't give
No,
you
I
a
love
good
it.
interpretation.
I'm not expecting an interpretation. I'm
Okay.
loving this because it's giving me so much information that I've never heard from any other reading.
There's not a whole lot out there on interceptions. There are some books, and I would suggest if you want to get a book on interceptions, personally, my favorite is Joanne Wickenberg's. It's an old book, but she's one of my idols. And I first did at a convention, she did, like an hour, whatever they were, an hour and a half on interceptions. And that was my first exposure to having somebody talk about it. And it just opened up everything that I had not quite understood about my own chart. And that was, in the late 80s that this happened. And so once I got her book, and I did that, her little workshop in the convention, and then also read her book and started paying attention to people I know and myself having an interception. That's where I started working with this and seeing how, they're not simple. They can be, I suppose, but I've never seen one that's just simple, because you have all these things to put together and try to see how can I help the person to work this through. So, but I would suggest her book. It's not called, if you hang on, I can grab it. I will. I hope I can.
Well, I'm appreciating this meeting.
Yeah, it's called, now I believe it's still in print. I'm sorry, I'm looking, I've got my computer to the side and I'm looking at that when the camera's in front. So it's Your Hidden Powers, and it's Intercepted Signs and Retrograde Planets. It's two separate treatises. So she doesn't combine the retrogrades with the interceptions, but you've got information. And I think it's a wonderful book. And if you are interested in learning more about interceptions, this is a great introduction to it. Not to push my own. Oh, you've got the book?
No. But I'm very interested in it because the majority of my planets are in those intercepted houses.
Wow. Okay. See, this is something that you really need to have a long time of looking at it, thinking about it, working on the connections, and it's just very complicated. I do have this interception course. I do have a 3-hour course of it. I don't know when I'm going to give it again, because I gave it last year. Yeah, last year. And I usually don't repeat them through the place where I normally teach through. It's a like an esoteric place in Chicago, and we do them. We're now currently, and Anthony, remind me, we can email this. I want to say this so I remember to do it. Thank you, whoever put that in the chat and it's Joanne Wickenberg, Wickenburg. I've started doing in person and on Zoom at the same time. It's not hard to do, but I'll tell you how I've done it. So we're going to be doing, blended classes from now on. So through that place, we usually do not try not to repeat a course for like 2 years. So we have, enough people who would like to take it. But if you want to get a class together with enough people, I would do that class as a 3-hour. And there we also do some of the people in the class, their charts, and we go through those. So,
Right.
and there's a lot more information. Yeah.
There's an interesting question actually asked earlier, which
Okay.
is using specific signs, but I think you can apply it to almost any intercepted house. What
Okay.
if Leo is the duplicated sign and contains the cusps of the 4th and 5th houses? Leo and 5th house cusps seem redundant. But you could obviously apply that to what if Saturn, what if Capricorn, whatever it is.
Anything.
So I'm just wondering, what if that sign, the duplicated sign, is on the cusp of its own house? Does that affect your general look at it?
I'm sorry, say that once again. I'm sorry,
Okay.
you said Leo on the 4th and 5th.
Yeah, but yeah, what if Leo is the duplicated sign that contains the cusps of the 4th
Oh,
and
so
5th?
you're
But I'm
saying because
saying it
Leo
could
would
go-
be the natural sign on the 5th is
But
what,
that could apply to any
Yeah.
intercepted house, that if
Yeah.
you've got,
Yeah.
you know, Capricorn on both houses, and Saturn is.
yeah, well, I mean, just because Leo is the natural position of the 5th house doesn't mean for you that you're comfortable with it yet. So that could be the 4th house where you've said, oh yeah, we got Leo going here, no problem. That now you personally are working with that, also integrating that Leo energy into a more creative atmosphere where maybe the Leo energy was being expressed in a familial or in a very private way. Now it's beginning to come out as it's going up the western side of the chart, and you are going to bring that more into creativity, whatever that might mean, than you would. Maybe you're sort of dabbling in drama, going on stage, acting, whatever the 5th house and Leo represent, maybe something you're now trying to incorporate, or that strong energy you're trying to bring into that area of life where Leo is natural to it. So, that may be helpful by the fact that Leo is natural to that position.
I'm gonna ask a question directly, but you may need clarification. Dolores Haggerty, if you're still here, as soon as I read your question, if Lynn says, what the heck, then please step in. The question says, what is the story with a Cancer ascendant with Cancer on the 1st and 2nd house,
Mhm.
and the moon is squared by Saturn in its rulership?
Okay, stop.
Okay.
I don't have that big a brain.
Okay.
So Cancer is the ascendant, and then Cancer is on the 2nd house cusp. So what's the 1st house about? It's about physical appearance. It's about putting yourself out into the world. It's about your body. Maybe who are you in that 1st house? That can be brought into how you earn money. So maybe you're a model, and you earn your money because you've got a great body and a great face, and you have this ability to shine out there. And so you do something with yourself, or maybe it's your personality that is so spectacular that you earn money based on who you are.
Okay.
From a 1st house perspective, because you're bringing 1st house capabilities into the 2nd house. So what's the 1st house about? That's being brought into what's the 2nd house about. And the 2nd house is about what you have, and certainly what you can acquire, or what you will acquire, most likely, your possessions, your earned money, your values. It could be any of those. And that's one of the things, there's so many possibilities in each house. Which part of it are we working with here? Which is the actual part that's manifesting? So with something like that, a quick interpretation, which would be, maybe you can be a model, or maybe you're, whatever you do with your body. I don't know, maybe you could be an acrobat. It's Cancer though, right? So yeah, you're probably not going to be an acrobat.
And her only additional thing is she's mentioning that her own moon
Okay,
is
that's the second part.
is squared by Saturn.
Oh,
And
okay.
So that,
That might not be so bad. I mean, it's a square and it's Saturn, and everybody goes, oh, Saturn. But, Saturn squaring your moon might say, you know what? You got to get your emotions under control here, honey.
Yeah, I would
I'm
say the
going to
same
make
thing,
that
yeah.
happen.
Because that
And that then, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you got all that Cancer up front. Squaring the
Mhm.
moon might actually help balance it out.
Yeah.
People always assume Saturn and Pluto are these monsters, but they can work
They
quite
can
well,
be.
even as a square, if you balance it out somehow.
And I heard you in the discussion earlier talking about Pluto, and you said exactly what I always say to people. Pluto does not come to harm you. It comes to help you make the changes that are necessary. The problem is people, and this is one of my soapboxes, by the way, people resist it because they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, not an option, honey, because if you don't do it, it's going to do it for you, and it will not be pretty. So just do what it's asking you. It doesn't care how significantly you do it, just do something. And if you do, then Pluto's going to be like, oh, thanks for doing that. Let me help you build something new in it.
Yeah, Pluto-
Whereas if you don't, it's going to say, gee, let me just knock this down. Oh, I'm sorry, I have ruined your entire life. Well, let's see what we can do after this. Right?
I always point out that Pluto is about evolution and rebirth, but remember, it's also connected to government, corporations, fascism, and things that cannot be fought by yourself. You know, you can't take on government all by yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, you know, I always call Pluto the planet that will not be ignored.
I say that too. I say that too. Yeah, you know, especially if it retrogrades on another planet of yours, or, you know, in whatever aspect. I always say it comes along and taps you on the shoulder, says, hey, I need you to do something here. And if you ignore it, then it comes back and it sort of slaps you upside the head and says, you know, really, you got to do this. And if you keep ignoring it, just comes in and goes, oh, let me help you
I
out.
ask a question? Can I ask a question about that? In
Really?
one
Okay,
of
go
your examples, you had the Leo on the 2-house cusp, and that particular person had Pluto in that house.
Yes.
Was there an effect of Pluto into that doorway into the next house? Did it carry in a level of intensity?
Yes, I will explain that because that Pluto in the second house karmically is for someone who has come here to learn how to take care of themselves and learn their own sense of security. Okay, Pluto in the second house is an indication of that. And this manifests in terms of realizing I have everything I need to take care of myself. I just need to realize it. And so the Pluto there, that Pluto also has a mutual reception with the sun in the 5th.
Oh,
So there's a lot that, you know, see, that's why I'm saying it's not quite, you can't do this so easily. But yes, so the strength of the concentration on that second house does filter over into the 3rd. And so the idea of, am I going to be safe? Can I earn enough money? Do I have enough? Is always a question that's being asked with Pluto there. And as time and the only planets in that chart that are intercepted are Neptune and Mercury, and they're in Libra. And there's a mutual reception between Mercury and Venus. So, you know, there's a lot of help for that. There's a lot of help for that intercepted Mercury through the Venus. But yes, so that is trickling into the 3rd, but in a very a way of a lot of communication within the community and actually earning a living through that, through teaching and things like that, and writing.
Yeah, I was really observing how on a few charts that I was just looking at, how I noticed that there are like outer planets that are often in the preceding houses, and they really, the people I know, they really do affect that intercepted set. The intercepted houses. But that's, as you know, I've been saying, you've really got to look at the whole picture. It's just, you know, we can look at these to give sort of examples and some information on it. But, you know, you've got to have that overall picture to really understand how does it fit in with everything, and to be able to help somebody move forward with whatever they're working on. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not saying we can't have any more questions, but I just want to pause and say, I've rarely heard anyone so lucid and spontaneous at the same moment. This is
You
an
mean
absolute, well, yeah, you're the star here today.
I'm not used to being the star, although I do have the 5th house sun. But as I was telling Anthony, all my planets are below the horizon. So I'm really very much of an introvert, except when I'm teaching, where I'm on stage, and then I get off and I can't even talk anymore. I have Uranus above the horizon. It's the only one, and it's the most highly aspected planet in my chart.
And I do want to mention, I mean, I've heard a lot of people lecture and stuff, and you, like I say, complete, lucid, able to turn on a dime and come back to where you were. You're one of the best lectures I've ever heard. So just
thank you. Do I get more money?
If it depends, they have to donate it. You donate.
No, I'm kidding. I don't care.
I know. I'm just joking too.
I know.
So
Anthony is very funny. We had a very short email exchange that actually made me laugh. And some of it was like 1 or 2 words back and forth. And I thought, oh, great sense of humor, because it matches mine. So thank you.
Well, that's that dry Capricorn stuff.
Mhm.
I always joke Capricorns make jokes and look around to see who gets it.
I get
Because
it.
it's our way of testing everybody, you know?
I grew up in a family that did not have my sense of humor at all.
Oh, boy.
It was devastating because, you know, if they did get it, it was 5 minutes after I'd made the joke. And they'd go, oh, that was funny. I'd be like, yeah, 5 minutes ago it was funny. Right now it's dead. Okay. Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah,
I do
understand
have a
that
bad sense of
completely.
humor. So excuse me.
So it's about 9:02. If there's any other little quick questions or
Yeah.
anything you want to
I just want to say, Lynn, great job. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing this with us.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoy, this
fantastic.
is one of my favorite topics. And so, you know, let me know if you have questions. You have my
Yes.
information.
Oh, thank you. Can I circle back, being a Virgo?
Sure.
To that original question
Mhm.
of my, in Coke houses, my 12th house being intercepted in Aries, but my moon is there, my 6th house being intercepted.
So you
in
have,
Libra.
wait, stop.
Yes.
You have Aries intercepted in your 12th house?
Correct.
Okay.
And I
And
have
your moon
Libra.
is in Aries,
Yes, and I have Libra intercepted in the 6th house, but my Mars is there. So was that
but your what is there?
Mars?
Oh, Mars. Okay.
So is that the double whammy they were talking about in the chat room that freaked me out? Or do I still have an interception, but if I have planets there, I don't feel the interception as much?
No, that's not it at all. You have 2
Okay.
intercepted planets.
All
So
right.
you've got an intercepted moon, you've got an intercepted Mars.
Okay.
And what you want to consider, you know, this is where it's not as simple as well, I don't think it really sounds simple, but it's even more complicated, because what you need to figure out, first off, which signs are intercepted.
Aries, Libra.
Aries and Libra, what are those signs about? The individual, the me, right? As
Yeah,
opposed to the not me, the
Right.
relationships.
Right.
So you've got issues of being an individual, being in
Yes.
relationships, right?
Yes.
Okay, what houses are they in? So you want to say, okay, the 6th house, everyday kind of things, relationships and everyday kind of things, not so easy for you.
Well, the 6th house is Mars, 12th house is the moon.
I'm not talking about the planets yet.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
Libra's intercepted in the 6th house.
Yes.
Where do you have relationship issues? Do you have difficulty making relationships at work, or you know, the daily kinds of activities? Do you have difficulties maybe being an individual Aries wise in, you know, a connection to, well, this is a service axis, right?
Yes.
So, you know, the Virgo 6th house service is on a very practical level, and the 12th house Piscean type of service is on a much more spiritual, cosmic kind of level. So you've got the 6th house of gotta have some organization, gotta, you know, think about all these things, and the 12th house, you just be. So you've got that, but you've got issues of being the individual and being in relationships in this axis. Now you look at the planetary energy in those signs that has no way of coming out easily. So what is being intercepted? An energy, maybe you have difficulty expressing your anger because that Mars rules Aries, and it's in its detriment in Libra, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that Mars is fairly debilitated just by its position without even looking at what aspects it has. Right. So you're going to have, so it has to come out through Virgo, right?
Okay.
It's Virgo on the 6th house cusp, and Pisces on the 12th house cusp.
I should double check that.
It has to be.
Yeah, if Aries
It
is
has to be.
intercepted. Yeah, so
Right.
it's
So you want to see,
Pisces on the
where do you
12th.
have issues being in relationship with other people, but also being able to assert yourself as the individual. And what does that mean that it's in the 12th? So think about what our 12th house issues, think about what our Aries issues, think about that and you've got that with an emotional bent to it. And for it to be, that Aries to be expressed, it has to come through Pisces. Oh, what do they have in common? Just about nothing. So that your moon energy of that very dynamic, push forward, emotionally kind of moon has to be stepped down through water. That fire's been very lessened. So this is the kind of thing, that you want to pay attention to. What does that mean for you? How do you experience that? And really, you're the best person to figure that out because you're living it.
Right.
Right. So, kind of like play with that and then start to see, okay, Mars rules the other interception and it's intercepted. This is really blocked energy. And, like I say, I'd really have to see your whole chart to kind of get this. What are the aspects that are affecting those two intercepted planets? What's the ruler? Where's your Venus? What's going on with Venus? So this is, the problem with astrology is it's not simple.
Right.
You spend your whole life learning it,
Yeah.
and never master it.
Yeah, no, it's a lifelong obsession.
It
That's what I like
is,
to
and that's
call
what
it.
keeps it interesting. If you like challenges, hey,
Yeah.
come on over to astrology.
And I mentioned to Lynn before we actually started, I said, it's every other reading, you're learning something new about astrology. Your
Yeah.
clients teach you every step of the way.
Yeah.
My favorite line is
you.
astrology is always right. I'm not so sure about astrologers.
That's true. That's
Um,
true. Yeah, because and it's fascinating to get readings of yourself from other astrologers. I recently asked two of my
Always,
friends who are
always.
astrologers, would you do, and both of them do not do readings, but they know what they're doing. And I said, would you, you can say no, but I would really like to have you do my chart because I'm at a point where I want to hear what somebody else has to say. I want to get out of my own little world and have some different view of who and what I am. And one of them has already done it. It was fascinating. And the other one's working up to it. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, just a side question. Somebody said, is there any significance to intercepted signs in the charts of mundane events? That's coming in a whole different direction.
I don't know. I have never looked at that. I know somewhat about, I've done some workshops and courses in mundane, so I have some idea of it, but I've never really looked at that with the interceptions in like charts of countries or in that, but that would be very interesting. And that could explain a lot about some of the countries. We don't have an interception in the Sibley chart for the US, I don't believe. Do we? Am I mistaken?
I don't,
Okay,
I
yeah.
haven't memorized that. I couldn't
I
say.
don't think it has, but
Okay.
yeah, that could be really very interesting. Somebody might want to do a workshop on that and I'll take it. I think that'd be really interesting.
Okay, before we sign off, I do want to mention, I talked to Lynn before we got on the air, and Lynn is going to be on my show hopefully in the next few weeks. And it's just going to be interview format. My Cosmic Tuesdays is usually more specifically interview oriented about what it's like to be who Lynn is and what she does and stuff like that. And of course, I promote my own show anyway, Cosmic Tuesdays, which is always interesting on Monday evenings. So this recording, which I'm going to stop right now, will be available in about 2 or 3 days. I usually look over it and edit a little bit of the dead air out, and we'll put it up for people to download. I will warn you, it's a big file because it's a video, and it's like a 90-minute video file roughly, but it'll be up in a few days, and it'll be up for usually about 60 days, and then the link will expire. So let it roll. Somebody's asking when and where is my show. If you go to Facebook, put in Cosmic Tuesdays, it's on Monday evenings from 9:30 to 11 p.m. because I have Uranus opposite Venus. What can I
So
tell
that'd
you?
be 8:30 till 10 for me.
For you, yeah. I may be moving it earlier later this year, but we'll see.
Okay.
And Catherine Silverton says the Sibley chart does have interceptions.
It does? Okay.
Greg says yes, 3rd and 9th.
Ah,
houses.
oh, very interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't done that. I mean, I pay attention to parts of it, but I haven't really analyzed it in detail.
No, there's so much to astrology. We can't be an expert in every area of it. Mundane
True.
is just like, okay, I tell me, you warn me in advance. I can't do it myself.
And as
But,
I said to Catherine Silverton earlier, I want to learn at least something about medical, that I have some ability in it. I'm never going to be a medical astrologer. I know that right now, but to have some more. And so I'm going to take your course, Catherine.
And listening to a good medical astrologer is
Mhm.
impressive, because even if you don't
Mhm.
necessarily understand 100%, you see the trail they're going through and where
Right.
they're taking it, which
Yeah.
again, I always really stress to anybody learning astrology. It's the process that's more important. Sure,
Mhm.
your Mars is in Saturn or conjunct in Scorpio. What else is going on? It's all got to be tied together. It's a gestalt thing. So
Yeah.
cookbooks, as you said, and computer generated charts are fun to get a handle on it. But
Right.
you've got to go further with it to become good at it. And
Mhm.
I've been doing it 35 years, and I'll be good any day now.
I started when I was 19, and I drove my friends crazy with the Joseph Gudovich Write Your Own Horoscope book,
Oh my God.
which was it's actually a great little book, but so you just keep
Yes.
going. Thank you all so very much for giving
Thank
me
you.
this opportunity. I had a good time doing it. Thank you.
You've got loads of love in the chat room.
Thank you.
very
I
much,
need
Lynn.
it. Okay. I'm
Who
going to go have
doesn't?
a drink now. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
And thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. We'll see you next month. Take care.